pros and the
Quit
cons.
looking at me.
Ma'am,
Look at me.
ma'am,
He keeps turning. He keeps turning.
ma'am, I need you to hear this. The next time it happens, there will be a consequence.
How does someone go from flashing cash in rap videos to burning teenagers alive? This is the horrifying true story of Brice Rhodes, a man whose crimes shook Louisville, Kentucky, to its core. And it all started with two young brothers who were simply in the wrong place at the worst possible time. In May 2016, 25-year-old Brice Rhodes was living a double life. On the surface, he was just another aspiring rapper, posting flashy videos online, flaunting luxury cars and designer clothes. But behind the scenes, there was something far more sinister brewing. Two stepbrothers, Larry Ordway, just 14, and Morris Gordon, 16, found themselves caught in Brice's twisted world. They admired his lifestyle and maybe even wanted to be like him. What they didn't know was that getting close to Brice would cost them their lives. On May 21st, a cyclist stumbled upon a terrifying scene inside an abandoned building in Louisville. Two bodies, badly burned and barely recognizable. Investigators initially had no idea who they were, but the autopsy told a chilling story. The victims had been stabbed and beaten. The fire had been set afterward, an attempt to destroy evidence. Police turned to the public for help, releasing forensic sketches. And just days later, a mother came forward, Elizabeth Wren. She recognized them. They were her sons. At that point, it wasn't just a murder investigation. It was a nightmare. Not only because of how brutal the killings were, but because the person responsible showed no remorse at all. In court, Brice smirked. He blew kisses to the victims' families. He acted like this was a game, but this was only the beginning. What came next revealed a motive darker than anyone expected, and a past filled with violence, manipulation, and cold-blooded execution. Stay tuned, because in the next segment, we're diving into the twisted motive behind this double homicide and the shocking connection to yet another murder. You won't believe how deep this goes. After the bodies were identified, the focus shifted fast, and all fingers pointed toward one man, Brice Rhodes. Elizabeth Wren, still reeling from the shock of losing her sons, told detectives something that changed the direction of the case. Her boys were last seen with Brice and two other teens, Jackery Taylor, 17, and Anwan Carter, 15. All of them had ties to Brice, and all of them would become key players in unraveling this horrific crime. Brice wasn't just some flashy local rapper. He had a history, a violent one. But the question still loomed. Why would he kill two teenagers? The answer came from a murder that happened just weeks earlier. On May 4th, 2016, a man named Christopher Jones was gunned down. It was a case of mistaken identity. Brice allegedly believed Jones was someone else, someone he had beef with. And unfortunately, Larry and Morris were there. They saw it happen. That made them a threat. Brice panicked. The fear of being exposed pushed him to take unthinkable action. And when detectives brought in Anwan Carter for questioning, the full horror finally surfaced. Anwan cracked under pressure. He confessed everything. He said Brice invited Larry and Morris over to his apartment, pretending it was for a party. But there was no celebration waiting for them. It was a trap. The brothers were tied up, tortured, and brutally stabbed. And it didn't stop there. Anwan claimed Brice forced him and Jackery to help. Imagine being a teenager and witnessing that. Or worse, being coerced into participating. According to Anwan, Brice made it clear, stay silent or end up like them. Once the boys were dead, Brice transported their bodies to an abandoned property and set them on fire, trying to erase every trace. But it didn't work. The truth was out.
He made my reach on his knees and like beg for forgiveness. He tied him up. Tied him up with something.
Jackery Taylor, on the other hand, denied everything. He said he wasn't involved, but the evidence and Anwan's confession said otherwise. Whether out of fear, loyalty, or guilt, Jacary's role in the crime remained murky. But one thing was crystal clear: Brice was the mastermind. And yet, what's truly disturbing isn't just what Brice did, it's how he acted after. Next, we'll dive into the courtroom chaos, the threats, the smirks, and the moments that left even hardened officers stunned. Because Brice wasn't done playing games, not by a long shot.
I can visit. He put the body visit. He put the sock in his mouth. Sorry, step in too.
Larry Ordway and Morris Gordon weren't just random victims. They were stepbrothers, bonded by more than family. They looked out for each other, hung out together, and like many teens were fascinated by flashy lifestyles. That's exactly what pulled them into Brice Rhodes' orbit. Brice portrayed himself as a rising rapper. Cars, cash, charisma. But underneath the swagger was a manipulative predator who knew how to reel in vulnerable teens. Brice offered gifts, let them ride around with him, and even featured them in his music videos. To Larry and Morris, it probably felt like they were part of something big, like they had a shot at escaping the struggle. But it was all smoke and mirrors. Brice wasn't building them up, he was grooming them. Then came May 4th, 2016, the day everything spiraled. According to witness accounts, Brice shot a man named Christopher Jones in front of the group. The motive? A case of mistaken identity. But what mattered more was who saw it happen, Larry and Maurice. And Brice couldn't risk that. What started as a senseless killing quickly turned into a cold, calculated cover-up. And if you think Brice's actions outside the courtroom were terrifying, what he did inside was just as disturbing. Once arrested, he didn't cower. He didn't show remorse. Instead, Brice turned every court appearance into a circus. He spat on his attorneys. He threatened judges. At one point, he even tried to escape custody. And through all of it, he never stopped smirking, even blowing kisses at the grieving family of the boys he murdered. This behavior wasn't just offensive, it caused years of delays. His trial was pushed back over and over, dragging on for 6 years. 6 years of pain, of waiting, of seeing Brice treat the justice system like a joke. Meanwhile, his accomplices, Anwan Carter and Jacary Taylor, took plea deals. Both received 10-year sentences for their roles in the murders. Not nearly enough, many argued, considering the brutality of what happened. But Brice, he kept pushing the limits, acting like the rules didn't apply to him, as if the lives he destroyed were nothing more than background noise in his twisted performance. And yet, the most chilling part is still ahead, because Brice wasn't finished playing with the system. The final verdict, and the reactions it triggered, left the courtroom shaken to its core. After 6 long years of courtroom delays, outrageous outbursts, and endless grief, justice finally caught up to Brice Rhodes. In 2022, the verdict came down, guilty on all charges. He was convicted of 3 counts of murder, the execution-style killing of Christopher Jones and the brutal, calculated slaying of Larry Ordway and Morris Gordon. On top of that, he was found guilty of tampering with physical evidence and abuse of a corpse due to the disturbing way he tried to erase what he had done. The sentencing was clear and final: life in prison without the possibility of parole. While some pushed for the death penalty, it was off the table after Brice's defense cited intellectual disability, pointing to diagnoses like ADHD and bipolar disorder. Still, for the families of the victims, knowing he would never walk free again offered a sense of closure, however small. But even as the legal battle ended, the emotional damage lingered. The brothers' family spoke out, remembering Larry and Maurice not just as victims, but as kids, kind-hearted, athletic, full of potential, and deeply loved by those around them. They weren't just names in a headline. They were sons, brothers, and bright souls robbed of their futures. The case also sparked larger conversations about the system itself. How does someone like Brice slip through the cracks? Despite repeated brushes with the law, signs of untreated mental illness, and a clear pattern of violent behavior, he was still out on the streets, still grooming young boys, still spiraling. Many pointed to a painful truth. Our systems often fail those who need help the most, both the victims and the perpetrators. There was no guidance, no intervention, no one to stop Brice before things went too far. And there was no one to protect Larry and Morris from being drawn into something they never should have been near. In the end, this wasn't just a story about murder. It was a story about broken systems, lost lives, and justice that came too late. And that's the haunting story of Brice Rhodes. What are your thoughts on this disturbing case? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story impactful, hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime content. There's always more beneath the surface. Stay tuned for the next case.